Hi there, welcome back to Torment, Tides of Numenera. Just talked to Siobe in the Fifth Eye, and yeah, she's a fascinating one. She projects someone, and yeah, we don't know who it is. I mean, it might be Feriok, Leto, Thiborus, Dharma, or the Malays. And we want to find out more about the Malays because we really want to talk to her, but she is probably akin to the Sorrow and so very, very dangerous. So we want to ask anyone that we can ask before her. And we found out many strange things. Let's talk to Thiborus right now. This man's mind is sealed off from you, like trying to read the thoughts of a book that's been glued shut. The man is old and strong, his face lined with years of brutal experience. His face is aquiline, his nose sharp, he wears a broad-brimmed hat, and his voice is a low rasp. "I'm Thiborus," he says. "Tell me your story, make it a good one." We'll tell him the truth. He's one of these veterans, so one of these old ones. We trust them somehow. I was born falling from the sky, and now I'm trying to repair a chamber that will stop a nightmare. He watches you intently as you speak, and when you finish he nods sharply. "You're telling the truth," he says. "A lot of people embellish or they lie outright, try to pretend they're more than they are, so people will remember them as giants. More often than not, they just end up looking ridiculous." He pats you on the shoulder. "You've given me a rare treat, thanks. So, what do you want? Can't help you with your chamber, but maybe there's something else. What can you tell me about these adversaries?" His eyes narrow and he leans in close. "I don't want to talk them up. It's important to understand that they are not unbeatable, that they are not immortal. They are tough, hells yes, but they can be stopped." He leans back. "That said, what are they? You've heard of spirits, beings of pure thought. That's what they are, except that they are more like living hate. Like every nightmare of fear that you can't escape, a vortex of despair. And that's why we fight, because they are poison." So how do you fight poison? With healing herbs? Tell me about them again. "Monstrously strong beings of the darkest emotions we've ever experienced. They exist only to devour." That all? Yes, okay. Because we really want to know much about these guys, these beings. "Can you tell me about yourself?" "I'm the brains of this operation." He gestures with a lazy hand around the table. "Without me, they'd lose the thread of their thoughts and spend all their time wandering in dreams." Dharma of the Bloom? That's the leader. "We're just trying to get away from your nagging." He tips his friend a wink. "It's that nagging that sharpens my word, Dharma, though I admit that my words are probably getting duller every second I spend talking to you." Turns back to you. Let's call me a warrior of language. Words are my weapons and my treasures. They might be pretty sounds to you, but to me they are the tools that pry open your imagination and leave you vulnerable to my friends here. I build pictures, set the scenes, and create mazes in your mind." He takes a careful sip of his drink. "I'm also the last person in the world to know the lost words of Kra." He closes his eyes tightly, and when he opens them again, you see worms of light dancing in his eyes. They're gone again with his next blink. They are a weaponized meme, a thought that sticks in your head, a tune you can't get rid of, a saying that echoes in your mind until it drives you mad and melts your brain. Siobe lays a hand on his arm. "You don't have to talk about this, Thiborus." She turns to you. "It's eating away at him. He has it compartmentalized, but he says that he can feel it burning away at his mind. I feel the power in you. Can you help him?" We can certainly try. Let's try to find out. So, we need to know more about these words of Kra. Can you tell us about them? His long face grows more somber, if that's possible. Those words were the ruin of an ancient civilization. I had this story from a dying Neverjin, before I wrested the last word from its mind. Goes like this. The scholars of that age had found deep truths about the world, and they stumbled across these words. They wrote the knowledge down and sealed the words away with the strongest warnings they could find. And then they killed themselves so that they wouldn't infect their kind. The power of the meme, first mentioned in Susan Blackmore. You could Google her. Maybe you'll find her, but Google is so full of memes that you probably won't find the origin of that. I'm myself quite fascinated by the theory of the meme. Not by the newer memes, but of course they are a part of that theory. But in essentially that theory says that memes are like evolutionary creatures. They eat, devour themselves, and they live in our minds. They are beings of a meta beings, you know, beings in our minds. I don't really believe it, because it's hard to believe, but it feels really creepy that you are maybe steered by words that you cannot get rid of. So I think this story is quite true. I think that today we are very close to stories like this. With all the developments in advertising and things like that, everyone has a strong interest to find those words, and if they are found, they will be disastrous. Thankfully, men are all different, so you won't ever find the words for everyone. The problem was they didn't count on their writings sticking through the ages. Some schist-brained fool ignored the warnings on the bindings, read the words and spilt them out into the civilization that had grown up in that spot over the millennia. 8 rulers of Kra, 8 words, and a continent-spanning empire fell, its people bleeding from their eyes with hatred in their hearts. Survivors tried the scholar who'd released the words, buried him in stone. The words were lost again. Neverjin, a hero, found the imprisoned scholar. It tried to wipe away the knowledge he'd spoken, and removed him from the world. Had the Neverjin stuck there, it would have seen the dust itself rewriting the words of Kra. On the floor in the wind, he bows his head. But it was too late. The words had infested his mind. I found the words. I burned them from the world, trapped them in a maze in my mind. And they are near the exit. That sounds crazy. So what are you going to do about that weaponized meme that's burning in your mind? Well, I could always kill myself. Honestly, I don't think anyone else could carry it, and the alternatives are too horrific to bear. He tilts his glass toward them. I love my colleagues here, but can they handle the words of Kra? I don't think so. Right now, I've got them locked into a mental construct no one has even the slightest idea how to build. Huh. We're only so young. And still we have to say something of significance maybe to this. We could try it. We are eternally curious. And even if it means our death, we are an explorer like that. I do have a space in my mind, and I can contain the words of Kra there. He leans back and crosses his arms. Really? And how is it that you're a better custodian for the words of Kra than I am? I'm more than strong enough. Use your psychic ability to read me. Can we do that? Ooh. 65, let's try. Oh, didn't work. focuses on you, and you feel something like the skittering of spiders across your mind. They plunge inside, and suddenly you sense his presence in the labyrinth, and you can feel his mind recoil. No, I don't think so. It's not just your mind in there. Many minds share that space, and honestly, I just don't trust that you will guard the word. Actually, I don't have a solution right now, but I do have more questions. Figures? What do you want to know? What can you tell me about this place? Ask Dama, ask Leto, ask Siobe or Farrog. I just drink here. Alright. Can you tell me any stories about the others in this bar? I can, but I won't. Talk to them yourself. They all have a piece of wisdom that they carry in themselves, and I won't dishonor them by telling their stories for them. He scratches under the brim of his hat. I can eulogize them, but every story would start like, here's a warrior, selfless and self-absorbed, knowing about themselves so they can help the world. But they are all more than that. See if you can get them from a different perspective than me. Well, let's ask the question about Clarion. Strong allies she needs to fight in the endless battle. Would you be willing to join her for the changing god? Not while Dama's convinced that one of the adversaries still lives, no. Besides, I've got other concerns, maybe later. Thank you, Thiborus, and farewell. That's a creepy thought. Eating away at you in your mind is a strange and terrible truth. Let's talk to the leader of them, Dama of the Bloom. The wispy mustache on this pudgy middle-aged man would be almost comical if it weren't for his deep and despairing eyes. They are the eyes of a man who has passed through the gates of alien hells and returned, though not necessarily whole. His fingers, tightly wrapped around some fine glassware, are strong and slim, a musician's fingers or a strangler's. You can't read his thoughts at all. You might as well try to read the thoughts of a wall. Before you open your mouth to speak, he says, "What is that place in your head?" I really don't know. Do you mind if I take a quick look? Seems like a strange thing to carry and not know anything about. His voice is polished and clean, friendly but intent. Alright, we'll just trust him. Just go ahead. But thanks, though it's not often the wisest choice to let strangers enter your mind. I'll not do you any harm, might help even. He smiles to take the sting out of his words. Ready? He breathes in, and suddenly you feel you are a mote tucked inside a gigantic prism with eyes peering in at you from all around. You are held tightly in an enormous fist. You are a flimsy piece of glass held up to the light. Yet somehow it is not utterly terrifying. Dama's words come to you as if from a distance. A shared space, such depths, such twists. It builds itself around your experiences, around those who share it with you. Shared spaces are occasionally dangerous, so I sharpened a part of your mind. His voice draws closer and the pressure eases. I didn't probe deeply, but this would be an excellent battleground if you lured a foe to you. You could trap it within your mind. You could destroy it. Oh, introductions. Yes. And we gained 1 intellect pool. Nice. Now 14 maximum. And Dama sets the glass down and shakes your hand. I'm Dama, Dama of the Bloom. He pinches the bridge of his nose, his eyes tightly shut, and you feel a gentle and powerful presence surround your consciousness. I have a request for you. It might seem strange, but you have an interesting topography to your mind. You might be able to help us. The 5th eye is home to psychic veterans. We fought an incursion of nightmares, I suppose, nightmares slithering into the city's shared dream space, eating minds and leaving husks behind. We called them the Adversaries. We burned them out and cauterized the wounds through which they infected our reality. But I can't shake the nagging feeling that one of them survived and waits to strike. I trust my intuition, and now it's telling me to ask for your help. Well, I'd be happy to help. What do I need to do? He breathes a sigh of relief. My thanks. I feel the adversary. I know it's here. I know it's close. It's watching us. But it's hiding its presence, and I fear it will strike when our guard is down. It may well be in the fifth eye even now. It's the malaise. He shrugs helplessly. Sadly, our fifth eye is blind. He jerks a thumb at the bartender. It might be that our foe has blinded us, but it might not have shielded itself from you. Look for it and tell me if you find something unusual. Oh, that's all crazy. We have to think about this. But first, let's talk about the adversaries. What can you tell me about the adversaries? Good question. Better if I show you. He closes his eyes and you feel an insistent nudge in your mind. Then your vision goes black, replaced with a nightmare. You see a void oblivion, a place where dark, black stars hang and shriek with formless rage, violet lightning arcs through the sky, and you witness enormous masses of pustulant orbs raging against each other. Streams of conscious thought rocket from them, and they scream of need, desire, hatred. Other emotions arise with these wisps of mental energy that curl like steam. They brush your consciousness with a touch, be slimed with the unknowable hungers of an alien mind. These luminous wisps quest through invisible cracks in dimensional walls. New worlds, unsuspecting minds, brilliant lights enfolded in the adversaries' decaying orbits, imprisoned stars winking out forever. They came through the bloom, shining and tenebrous at the same time. He whispers, they offended games, or they offered games, riches, promises for the future. I felt their passage and was afraid, and I hid my mind from their questing touch. I felt them reach for me, and I cowered in my shell. Siobe lays a hand on Dama's shoulder. Those who didn't hide saw the lure, and they were drawn into that unwinnable mental game, attracted by the light of the adversaries' minds. They followed their own dreams into madness. Psychics and normal people alike. The ruin of the city's minds was... She shakes her head. You were wise enough to see beyond the lure and into the danger. You couldn't stand against them yourself, and so you hid. We all did. Not all, Ziboros growls. Some stood. They played the game and got cracked like glow globes. I felt them die, and their spirits got sucked into a vortex of endless fear. You did the right thing, Dama, and I've told you that before. Fine, fine, Dama replies, waving the words away. But you've seen what the adversaries are like now, inhuman, with no negotiation. Maybe they are communicating with us and we don't understand them, but I tell you, if this is their hello, I don't want anything else to do with them. So, those of us who survived that initial incursion gathered here, we set aside our differences and we fought back, but not without our own losses. What are the adversaries? I don't know. What we see isn't the whole picture. We know that it's an extrusion into our world. It's just a piece of the creature's psychic material. Maybe it's a conscious unit on its own. Maybe it's self-directed, but my deepest fear is that every adversary we've seen is the smallest piece of a singular entity, and that our pushback is drawing its attention ever so slowly toward us. He shivers. If you ever meet one, you will know what frightens me so. Ah. How do you fight the adversaries? Dama cuts the air sharply with the edge of his hand. Do not approach an adversary on your own. No matter how strong your defense is, it will find a way inside. Look, we used a spotter, someone trained to recognize their scent. He'd give them the briefest engagement, enough to whet their appetites, and he'd bring them to a battlefield of our choosing. Our choosing, you understand, a place we knew, one we had constructed. You have a structure in your mind, but it will not be enough. Theoboros leans in. Tell the best stories you know. The ones that are familiar to you. You want to know your psychic terrain, and you want to turn those images toward the familiar. Get onto ground you're comfortable with, and you might be able to disengage from the monster. He closes his eyes. Might. They can trick your desire, rewire you, and devour you before you know you've been led astray. Like the man says, don't do it alone. Wow. Well, thank you. And farewell for now. So that is very dangerous. And we are going to ask more of him in the next episode and then confront the Malays, maybe. Happy gaming to you. See you in the next episode of Torment, Tides of Numenera. This is Immanuel signing out, wishing you happy gaming.